So welcome back to another episode of Out of the Bubble. It's a slightly different episode this week. So the season has just finished and I've had an amazing year and interviewed so many inspiring women, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to their stories. I will be back again with a new season in February 2021, and I've already got a fantastic lineup and a real diverse cross-section of women to share with you. But I thought it would be a great opportunity to reflect on some of the stories that we've already heard in the past and to do some review episodes. So today I am joined by Michelle Cowan, who is actually a podcaster herself. She is the co-host of Two Northern Lasses, which is a very down-to-earth podcast for business owners and wannabe owners on how to level up and how to blend business and pleasure. So she already knows about the world of podcasting, and Michelle's going to be joining me to have a look back at 4 of the episodes that I've already put out and to see what resonated with her, how she can maybe implement some of the things that she's learned and listened to along the way, and what she's got out of listening to the podcast. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It's a slightly different journey. I'm looking forward to doing something a bit different. So today we're going to be looking at Marina Gask, who is a journalist and the founder of Orgy Online. We're going to be talking about Kaiser Henrika, the plus size models episode. We're going to be talking about Charlotte Griffith, who is the owner and founder of Bridge Models, which is a curve agency, and Danny Wallace, who is the Queen Bee, and she's a motivational speaker and had turned some really difficult life experiences into positive, and now helps other women. So we've got lots to talk about, and I'm looking forward to talking with Michelle this morning. So good morning, Michelle. Thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Hello, thank you, Rachel, for asking me.
How are you? How do you kind of cope through this year? Because obviously 2020 has been quite a difficult one. How do you feel like you're surviving it as we draw to an end of the year?
Yeah, surviving it's probably a word that we're all using at the moment, and I probably feel like I am surviving. I'm taking some kind of wins. I relaunched my business towards the end of the first lockdown. We took the opportunity to rebrand and relaunch, which we did, and that's going as well as I want it to go. I co-host my own podcast, Two Northern Lasses, and with our listeners are going up, so that's all great. And that as a hobby throughout the lockdown has been a real lifesaver.
Yeah, I think for me, podcast has. I've listened to so many more podcasts during lockdown.
And just having something else to focus on and talking about somebody else's good news story has been really good. And yeah, I'm just glad that we're sort of nearing Christmas and the talk about the vaccine is increasing, and hopefully we can have some kind of Christmas and start the new year with a different kind of mindset, really. So yeah, it's been a tough year for a lot of people. I think I've probably fared better than most, and I myself have had COVID and had 2 weeks of illness, but I'm over it now, and I don't think I've got any signs of long COVID, so fingers crossed 2021 is a better year for everybody.
Definitely, yes, I'm with you there. So for people that don't know anything about you, how do you describe and introduce yourself?
Well, it's a word that a lot of people don't like, but I am an entrepreneur. I spent most of my working career in American corporates. I quit my career 3 years ago and started up my own business, which is a software business. We have a software product called Social Sender, which is the first product that we brought to market. I also do a non-exec director role for another software company called Torchbearer, and it's a young startup, help them, guide them, and do a couple of days a month for them. And I co-host my own podcast. I do the odd bit of consultancy, which is a bit of a hangover from my corporate career at Cisco. And yeah, that's me really. I'm a mum. I've got two teenage boys, and I'm married, and I've got a dog who is my world.
Oh yes, I can relate to that. I've got one too. And I think, your story and your journey really kind of epitomizes exactly what Out of the Bubble is about. It's about that reinvention later in life, and you have, like you say, you've walked away from the corporate world and then gone out and gone solo. The idea of this episode is to review some of the podcasts that we've listened to and to see how other people can relate to these women's stories. So let's start with one that I think really will resonate with you the most is Marina Gask, the journalist's episode.
Yeah, I absolutely love that podcast. It totally resonated with me. The whole time I was listening to it, I was sort of making notes, and I was thinking to myself, that's me, that's me, that's me. And the way she talks about the generation restart, I was 48 when I walked away from my corporate career. Lots of people are thinking that they're going into the 50s, starting to do that kind of wind down into retirement. And to be perfectly honest with you, that's what I thought I was going to be doing.
Mm.
I thought, well, just pick up a few bits of work for a couple of years and then retire. What actually happened was something completely different. I took some time out, got a dog, ended up doing a lot of walking and a lot of thinking, which sort of gave me the space to really think about what I wanted to do. And Marina also talks about, when you start doing different things, other doors open, and that's exactly what happened to me. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that episode. I love that, she's inspired by looking at women that are over 50, what these adventurous women are doing. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I stalk a lot of people on social media that are kind of these aspirational people to me, that I'm looking for ideas and a kind of validation that actually what I'm doing is the right thing. Have I made the right decision? I mean, I've got way less money. I don't have the lifestyle that I used to have. I am very happy. And I've said this to a lot of people. I feel healthier now at 51 than I ever have done in the whole of my adult life.
Yeah, so many people will be able to relate to that. It's about finding that happiness, isn't it? But also, I think fear really does hold a lot of people back that would really love to do something different, but are just too scared to because they think they're too old. So how did you get past those fears?
Yeah, a number of things happened to me in the run up to me leaving my corporate career. I'd been on holiday with my husband and two boys, and at the time the boys were 14 and 12. We went to New Zealand for a trip of a lifetime for a month. And actually it was on the plane home that I kind of started thinking that I didn't have the relationship with my children that I wanted to have. And that was largely down to the work that I was doing. Actually, I was at home a lot because I had a global role. When I was traveling, but when I was at home, but I wasn't present. So I started realizing that and thinking, okay, they're going to be off in a few years, they'll be at university or whatever, time's running out kind of thing. And then sadly, when I got home, I started to think about doing something else. And then I lost a childhood friend of mine, died. And he was a couple of years younger than me, but it really kind of hit home that actually, I only have got one life. The day after that happened, a friend of mine's son died tragically in a barn fire. And he was the same age as my son. So I was just like, oh gosh, I've got to do something here. And through that and thinking and talking to my husband and understanding how I could get out, I actually made the decision to leave. It was actually a friend of mine said to me, while I was sort of going through the decision-making process, she said, once you've got over walking away from the salary, you'll be able to make the decision quickly. And, it's quite sad looking back now that all my decisions at that point were around, can I walk away from the money? What's the impact of not having all this money? And she was right. Once I'd sort of said, I can actually live a different life, a cheaper life, if you like, that decision was really easy for me to make, and I made it, and I walked away.
Yeah, and I think it shows the courage that you've got, but also I think it's about having that passion and purpose, isn't it? It's about having that purpose that fulfills you and that makes you happy. And I think, so many women over 40, 45 are reevaluating, I suppose, their lifestyle and what they want.
Yeah, I mean, the whole kind of, I've got a lot of designer clothes and handbags and things like that that actually mean very little to me right now,
Mm.
because my health and my happiness is more important to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you wish really that you could understand that at a younger age, but somehow you just can't.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Maria talks about it because obviously from a journalist point of view, she talks about the magazines and diversity in magazines. And, do you feel represented at your age now in the magazines that you see? And do you think the society is shifting to celebrate all these fantastic women that are getting on with life and doing amazing things in the 40s, 50s, and 60s?
I do think it's getting better. I'm not a consumer of magazines myself.
Mm.
I kind of take my news from online.
Yeah.
So I suppose online magazines definitely feel more represented. Maybe it's because I'm looking more for that kind of content.
Mm.
But also I think, you only have to look on Instagram to see that there's a lot of people putting content out there that are in our age demographic.
Yeah.
And, because you can curate your own feed,
Mm.
you can create your own kind of magazine. And talking to somebody about this last week, interestingly enough, that sitting on your phone on an evening scrolling through Facebook can be absolutely soul destroying, because it's just like scrolling through bad news after bad news in a lot of cases. But scrolling through Instagram is completely different. It's just like sitting down with a glossy magazine and picking up different articles, especially now people are writing in a bit more of a long form manner, or with links to blogs and things like that. It's a more kind of pleasant experience, but I definitely feel like I'm more represented now. And actually, when I do go shopping and I see the magazines on the shelves, you do see the likes of Helen Mirren on the front cover, and there's more of that now.
Yeah, definitely. The conversation is definitely out there, and I think magazines and advertisers have got to take that on board. I think we are seeing changes. And it's interesting, and I think you're so right about particularly Instagram. It's about creating your own feed, and it's almost like creating your own tribe around you, isn't it? And finding the right people that you get inspiration from. And I think it's a great tool for connecting with like-minded people.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you.
And talking of confidence, how much confidence have you gained from this journey of reinventing yourself and going a different path career-wise? Did it knock your confidence at first, or did you just have this inner sense that you knew it was going to be all right?
I've always been a kind of confident person. I mean, probably if you asked anybody that knows me, they would describe me as confident. Inside, it doesn't always feel like that. And I think when I initially left my corporate career, I wasn't really thinking about what was coming. I always had in the back of my mind, if everything goes wrong, I know that I can go back and get a similar job in the field that I was in. So I wasn't really worried about that. What I really suffered from was kind of imposter syndrome. So, writing managing director on a form for something for the first time, or co-founder, and just describing myself in a manner that was sort of like, really, is that me? Have I really got my own business? And I still get a little bit of that now. But I do believe that I've got a right to be at the table. Mm. And I believe that I can do it. And I'm old enough to understand that the bits that I can't do, I can ask somebody.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is an age thing.
Yeah.
That I've learned that if I don't know the answer to something, I will know somebody that can help me.
Yeah.
And I am a great believer in paying it forward, helping other people. I do a lot of earlier in career mentoring, and it pays back in spades, because you help people and you always get back more than you give.
Yeah. So that leads me nicely into the next episode with Danny Wallace.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know Danny, she's called the Queen Bee. I am the Queen Bee on the social media, and she's a motivational speaker. And she's very much about supporting and helping and mentoring other women to be able to reach their full potential. So how did you find that episode?
I actually really, really loved it. She reminds me of kind of quite a few people that I know. She's got a lot about her. What I really liked about Danny is her honesty and the way she talked through her own story and her vulnerabilities, the difficulties that she faced and where she is now. Now, I will put my hand up and say that it wasn't until I got to the bit in the podcast where she's talking about one of her mentors that said that she couldn't be fat and be a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
And I was like horrified that somebody would say that. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to Google her to see what she looks like. And, you know, that's kind of a bad thing for me, because I was thinking, I hope I'm not going to look at the picture and judge her. When I looked at the picture, I was like, I need to be her friend. I've just listened to her story. Yeah. She just got so much. And she really made me think about my fear around public speaking. And I've been asked to go and speak at various events and made kind of excuses up. And she talks about, you know, it's wrong to not share your gift. And I really, really liked that. And it definitely gave me a kick up my arse. Yeah. And to sort of think, you know, get over yourself. But I loved what she had to say, and I loved that she sees her body as a vessel and that the voice comes from the mouth.
Yeah, I mean, she really is somebody that's an absolute joy to be around, and her positive energy just kind of oozes out of her. But you're so right, it's that fear of visibility, isn't it? And women are notoriously bad at almost self-promoting themselves because we feel really uncomfortable about it. But, you know, I think you're so right, the fact that she turns it around almost and says, yes, but you've got a gift, you need to share it with other people, because then you can help other people. And I think that's a much easier way of getting your head around this whole visibility and self-promotion, isn't it?
Yeah, and I loved that episode so much that I literally got to the end of it and texted a friend of mine who has a branding business, and she also does a lot of public speaking. I said, you've probably already heard of this woman and listened to this episode, but if not, please have a listen. And she came back to me and said, oh gosh, no, not heard of it, but that looks like a brilliant podcast and I'm all over it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she is really, really just one of those women that I definitely have been drawn to, and has been a huge help to me this year. And I'm so glad that we've connected. So how will you get past this fear of public speaking? Next time somebody asks you, will you say yes?
Yeah, I think I will. I actually think maybe some coaching would help me. Because I don't think that many people go into public speaking right now anyway without some kind of guidance. Yeah. I have spoken to a coach about this in the past and still decided not to go and do it. But I do think it's, you know, we're living in a different world now, aren't we? And actually, because of COVID, I personally believe that the world is less polished and it's imperfect, and people are more understanding about imperfection. And actually, I've seen people speak now and make complete, you know, they've made a blunder, but they can recover from it, because actually what people now see is they've made a mistake. They're just normal. It's just who they are. And I think I can probably forgive myself a bit easier now. You know, I don't need to be going onto a conference call with a full face of makeup and my hair done, and I can go ahead and just do it and be myself. And I think that's what I'm kind of thinking around the speaking, that, you know what, I've got my story. I can talk to my story. I know it better than anybody else. And if it goes wrong, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about owning it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also not getting into that comparison, because your story is very different to somebody else that might have had a similar journey, but it's not your story. You're unique. And I think it's about remembering that. And I also think it's about not having to have everything perfect before we go into starting new things. And Tara Moore's playing big book's been fantastic for me for that, because she talks about just taking those steps and starting something without having to have all the everything in a row and all perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. Every time you do something, you're going to be learning, and it's okay to show your vulnerability, I suppose, and make mistakes.
Yeah, and I think Danny talks about that in the episode. She talks about taking small steps, just do
Mm.
one thing differently and see what opens up and where it leads to. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, she definitely motivates me.
Good. And another really confident young lady, Kaiser Enrica. How did you find that podcast? Because obviously it's very different, because she is younger. And the reason why I'm trying to include some younger women is because I do think older women still have a lot to learn from the generation below us, because they have had different journeys and they've grown up at a different time. So I want to try and mix it up so that it's not all just women over 40, because I think it should be intergenerational.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that episode as well, which is a kind of a, a theme. Um, I also googled Kaiser, and my initial reaction was she's absolutely stunning.
Mm.
She has clearly got no body hang-ups around the size she is, and she's got a plan and she's following it, and she knows where she's going.
Yeah.
I do believe that Kaiser's generation and below have less body confidence issues to the generation that we're from.
Mm.
You know, we grew up with Kate Moss saying eating was cheating, and you know, we had supermodels on the front of every single magazine. You know, everything was airbrushed. You know, if you weren't a size 6, 8, 10, then you were overweight.
Mm.
I definitely think that is still with our generation.
Yeah.
I go to a slimming club, if you like. I go to keep a lid on it, on my weight. I don't go because I don't think I'm massively overweight, but I go because I know where I'm comfortable in my weight, and it keeps me within some boundaries. But I do think certainly a lot of the young people I know just extremely body confident, and she clearly is. I mean, I love some of the pictures that she's had taken.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think that I could actually do that.
Have you got more confident around your body though as you've aged, or have you struggled with it in midlife? Because I think it can go either way. I think some women in their 40s really find their body confidence, think, stuff it, I'm not bothered what anybody thinks about me, I'm happy. Or it can send you the other way and you almost revert into a bit of a shell and feel really self-conscious.
I actually think I'm kind of okay. You know, I think, you know, back to my 20s, I was at university, I must have been a size 0. You know, when I got to 30, that was at the time I was getting married. It was before I had children. I was a size 8 stroke 10. I then had my children in my 30s. I got to 40s. I was probably half a stone heavier. I was okay with that. And then I guess running up to my 50s, I've definitely become more health conscious, eating better, exercising more, being kinder to myself. You know, I'm definitely okay with where I'm at. I don't want to go too much over. And I know that if I go too much under, it shows in my face, and it's a trade-off.
Yeah, yeah. And it's that, you've said it a few times, but it's so true. It's about being kinder to yourself, isn't it? Well, I think that's the crux to everything, is just about not being so hard on ourselves and just giving ourselves space to just breathe and be kinder.
Yeah, and there's a balance around, you know, having a nice life and being miserable. Well, food's a big part of my life.
Yeah, yeah,
It's where I do a lot of socializing.
yeah.
So, you know, to be really kind of strict around that area would probably make me unhappy.
Yeah. So going on to the last episode then, Charlotte Griffiths, who is the founder of Bridge Models, and that's a specific curve agency. So it's an agency that I'm with, and I'm a size 14, 16, so I'm classed as a plus size model, which when you think the average UK woman is a size 16, that term in itself just seems completely wrong. But how did that episode leave you feeling?
I learned a lot. I mean, the stuff that she talked about around how the modelling industry is, you sort of hear rumours over the years, stories about catwalk models and how models stay thin. I mean, she recounts a story about models eating toilet paper because it makes them feel full, which
shocking, isn't it?
That really made me feel kind of physically sick that somebody would do that to themselves. But I understand that that's the pressure that these models are put under, and the pressure to stay relevant in their field means that they have to stay a certain size. But I really liked how she'd sort of kind of fallen upon an internship where she ended up working with glamour models, which gave her a different perspective, even though it wasn't what she was expecting. And then she's kind of taken all her learnings of what she doesn't want to see in the kind of modelling industry and built their agency on principle and good things. And this, I really like the way that they give this kind of one-to-one treatment to the models, so they're not just treated as a face in the catalogue that you can pick from. It's more about the relationship. I really was interested in the kind of shift that they've made as a business into being kind of social media experts, which they've had to be, because with the onset of influencer marketing, which you know all about that, because you are an influencer, the agencies have got to be behind that, and they've got to be really savvy and understand that the quality of the stuff that's being put out on social media by what are deemed amateurs is actually weaving its way into their industry.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a huge. I think it's just going to grow even bigger. To be honest, I think it's a great marketing tool for brands to be able to employ the influencers, because I know some of them that really work really hard at creating fantastic content that's probably just as good as big campaign social media. So they've got to take note of them. I think it's a different way of branding, isn't it?
It is. And if you look at some of the brands now, some of the more ethical brands, they're really starting to look at real people as opposed to non-real people.
Yeah.
And I think more and more brands are going to get behind that, because you've got to be able to find somebody that you can relate to, that you can find a connection with and say, actually, that's me. Or that's who I'd like to be. I follow loads of over 50s fashion bloggers on Instagram. And, they just put pictures of themselves in clothes and stuff. And you think, actually, I really like that skirt because I can see myself in it, because she's not a size 0.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my big bugbear. That's something I'm really passionate about. I want all women over 40, 50 to go into lingerie shops and see a woman in a bra that's 50 years old that just looks normal, and not to be bombarded with a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old photo, because I never looked like that in my 20s, never mind 30 years on. But we need to be able to relate to the women that we see in marketing.
Definitely. Well, I was talking to a friend about this, because my friend's daughter works for a big gym brand. I won't say which one it is. And she got me some clothing using her staff discount, because I'd helped her to when she was applying for the job. I'd helped her with the CV and the interview technique and stuff like that. So she'd got me all this gym gear, and I love to go in the gym and stuff. And I was talking to a mum, and we were comparing this pair of tracksuit bottoms that we'd both got. And I said, they're missing a trick, this company. They're turning over millions. They're like one of the fastest growing gym brands in the world at the moment. But they've got probably over 30 models.
Yeah.
And you think, we're buying this stuff. We've got disposable income. Why are they not actually putting women out there that are our age wearing this kit? or
Yeah.
perhaps it won't look as good as it does on the 18-year-olds. But actually, people like me are working out in the gym. Look,
Exactly.
all my friends go to a gym.
Yeah, we're the ones buying it. We're the ones with the income to be able to pay for these goods, and so why we're being ignored? It's a really, and I think it's changing, but I think it's going to take a while. I mean, it's interesting because you come from a very corporate background. How was it being when you first started your career in that industry as a young woman? How difficult was it then? Was there an equal representation of men and women?
No, there wasn't. And 20 years ago when I joined Cisco, I think at the time there was something like 4% of the employees were women. In a high-tech environment, it's a challenge. I mean, those figures have improved over the years. The challenge is getting young females to apply for jobs in what is deemed kind of engineering and tech, because they traditionally don't choose those subjects at school. So a lot of work going on around STEM work at school level to try and encourage more females into that space. And also when you get into corporate, there's a kind of challenge around, if the board is male, younger women in the organisation look up and can't see their place at the table. So I used to get involved in mentoring early in career females because they couldn't see how to get my job. They didn't know what the path was. They couldn't understand it because the workforce wasn't diverse enough. So I think it's definitely improving. Clearly, it's a different world now. I hope for more diversity in the corporate world. And I think the brands that do embrace diversity to its fullest will be the brands that win out in the end, because also the customers want to see, they want to be able to connect to people within these corporates that they can buy from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we can say that across the whole society, can't we? That the brands that really are inclusive and diverse are the ones that are going to win the consumers over, definitely moving forward. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. It's been really good fun to do this review. Thank you so much. Last couple of questions. So if you could interview anybody, who would you really like to interview and why?
I've actually answered this question on my own podcast. I would really love to talk to Amanda Owen, the Yorkshire Shepherdess.
Yes, yeah.
I stalk her as well.
Yeah, I do.
And she's from Huddersfield, which is where I'm from, and she's somebody that went after something and got it and lives her true life. So I'd love to.
Me too. She's definitely on my list as well. And women are notoriously bad at accepting compliments. So if you were to pay yourself a compliment, Michelle, what would it be?
Ooh. Oh, you've really put me on the spot there. But
everybody struggles with it, don't worry.
Something around my resilience, and not just in relation to the year that's we're nearing an end to, but prior to that as well. Setting up your own business is challenging a lot of the time, and you've got to be really resilient to see it through. And there have been times where I've wanted to just pack it in or give the business away even. But I've kept at it, and I definitely think that is a trait or a skill that I've got that I'm proud of.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing where your podcast goes next year, and I hope you have a much more positive start to next year and keep thriving with your business. So thank you very much for your time, Michelle. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I really enjoyed finding out more about Michelle and listening to her story, as well as how the women that she's listened to on the podcast has really helped her connect and think about things more. So I'm so glad that it's having an impact on people. And have you got a favourite episode? I'd love to hear from you, so let me know which one really resonated with you the most. And also, I'd love to know who you would like to interview as well. So I can create a longer list of women that I would really like to have my dream list of guests. So I'm working my way through them. So if you have somebody that you are desperate for me to interview, or you know of somebody that would be great for the podcast, then please leave me a message. You can find me at Rachel at outofthebubblepodcast.com, and you can also find the website outofthebubblepodcast.com. So please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, I'll be back next week with another review, but keep being fabulous.